What's up guys, Ben Milliken here for Mystery Tackle Box. You know, one of the questions I get asked all the time over on my channel is when is the best time to pick up a spinnerbait and when's the best time to pick up a chatterbait. And while I throw them in the same areas once in a while, both definitely have their benefits and certain types of areas that I like to throw them in based on specific cover, time of the year, and forage in the lake. So in today's video, let's talk about the differences, similarities in these two baits right here to help you catch a bunch more fish this year on the water. All right, so before I even tie these guys on, let's really quick talk about the basics, the differences in these two baits, appearance-wise and cosmetics-wise. First, let's talk about the spinnerbait. So spinnerbait, basically, you're gonna have a lead head, you're gonna have a couple blades on it or one blade. You can have willow blades, Colorado blades. Willow blades won't put out quite as much more thump, but it's a little bit more natural. Colorado blades will have a lot more thump. You can get Indiana blades, which is kind of like a combination of the two, but that is the basics. Comes with a skirt. I really like bait fish colors, shad colors, bluegill colors, stuff like that. I don't get too crazy. I try a couple different colors. If those don't work, I try a different bait. One major tip though I'll share with you guys to always do with a spinnerbait is to put on a trailer hook. Trailer hooks are huge because this is not a natural looking bait. It's a wire with some flashy blades. It's got a dumb looking skirt and head on it. The fish don't care on a bait like this if you add a trailer hook, and for the reason that it's not that natural, oftentimes the fish are just gonna be bumping right behind it, not getting the whole bait, or they're just gonna swipe at it. So having that extra trailer hook will catch you so many more fish than if you go fishing without one. And really quick, let's talk about the chatterbait. This is a chatterbait right here. It's similar to the spinnerbait in that it's a single shank hook, has the lead head right there, but that's where the similarities end. It doesn't have the big wire bend of the spinnerbait with blades on it. Instead, it just has one single blade right here, a little hexagonal type shape guy attached directly to the head like this one right here. They also get attached by split rings. That gives it generally a little bit wider, more swimming action like that. If it's directly connected to the blade to the head like this one right here, it's gonna have a lot more tighter shimmy action like that. Now these are a little bit newer on the market. Spinnerbaits have been around, I don't even know how long, 50, 60 years probably. Chatterbaits came on the game in the early 2000s and guys have been cashing checks and breaking necks with them ever since then, but both are very, very effective. So next, let's get these tied on. I'm gonna tell you guys what situations call for which and when I pick each of them up. All right, got both baits tied on. Let's talk about the similarities real quick between the chatterbait and the spinnerbait. So the similarities to me, they're both flashy, loud, noisy, unnatural looking baits. They don't necessarily look like a whole lot, but they catch fish anyways. You gotta get over that mental hurdle. But for that reason of them not being that natural of baits, to me they excel almost exclusively in water with less than probably 3 feet of visibility. You don't want to throw them in super, super clean water. There's better baits you can throw like a swim jig or a swim bait. But in that muddy water, when those fish oftentimes can't pick up the vibration of that swim bait, swim jig, natural looking baits, they are absolute killers. A lot of people don't throw the old spinnerbait anymore, but it still catches a ton of fish. I just caught like a 23-pound limit on it the other day in the pre-spawn. So let's start with the spinnerbait. Where do I throw this guy right here? Well, you can throw it in just about wherever you want to, but my favorite area to throw this spinnerbait is whenever I'm fishing muddier water and wind blowing into it on areas without grass. So to me, the spinnerbait's more effective fishing all different types of shallow cover. I generally throw a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait all throughout the year in water less than 10 feet deep. So whether you're fishing seawalls, you're fishing riprap, you're pulling it over the top of a laydown or a stump or something like that, especially if there's a little bit cleaner water, a little bit less stain, you always want wind. But that's a great thing about a spinnerbait. When those fish are active, they're up busting shad, you know, maybe they got the shad pushed up against a bank and there's a lot of wind blowing in that area, a spinnerbait is so tough to beat. Or really around any type of isolated cover when there's wind blowing into it. You know, that's the great thing about a spinnerbait. I don't impart a lot of action on it, so it's pretty much a straight cast and retrieve bait. I like to fish it a little bit more slower and methodically, so slow rolling it and giving it a lot of time in that strike zone. But oftentimes, you know, if you come up to a super windy area and you flip a jig in there, or you flip a Texas rig in there, it's so windy, there's waves crashing, you're not gonna get bit, or you're not gonna feel that bite. At least with a spinnerbait, it's got those blades flashing, the fish can see it from a long ways, and it's just a straight retrieve. So those fish are gonna come out of there, smash it. You're not gonna miss a bite because you didn't feel it because of that wind blowing in there. It's just a super effective way to cover water when those fish are active. There's a lot of wind, bait pushing around. That's when I pick up a spinnerbait. So now that we talked about the spinnerbait, let's talk a little bit about the old chatterbait. You know, once again, I like the same type of conditions when I'm throwing this as a spinnerbait, and that is windy, a little bit more off-colored water, stuff like that. But the main difference between a spinnerbait and a chatterbait is the chatterbait is a stone cold killer around grass cover. Grass is absolutely the deal for a chatterbait. Don't get me wrong, I've caught fish on a chatterbait fishing, you know, stump fields, docks, laydowns, stuff like that. Even just playing riprap or nothing banks. But to me, the most effective way to fish a chatterbait is around grass. And this bait became famous in fishing tournaments because of its effectiveness in grass areas in the pre-spawn. Those big pre-spawn females staging up in grass areas. Previously, the only way that guys were really catching them was on a lipless bait. But now all of a sudden the chatterbait was on the scene. Obviously a different look, different vibration. Plus with that single hook, it comes through that grass a lot of times so much better than a lipless crankbait. The best way for me to fish it then in those grass areas is to simply make a long cast on a grass flat, a grass point, hard grass, crunchy grass, stuff like that, not the slimy stuff, and let it get bogged down on purpose. You let that bait get down there, get it bogged down in the grass, and you're simply just gonna take your rod and pop it out. Every so often, just pop it through that grass, and that's gonna elicit some really, really strong reaction strikes all throughout the season. Not just the pre-spawn. I catch fish on this summer, fall, even into the winter. I'll slow roll it if you can find any type of deep grass, stuff like that. Absolutely a killer in that situation. There we go. There we go. Just a little guy. Isn't it funny when things happen like they're supposed to? I was just about to tell you guys this one last tip. You know, even though the water is clean on the main lake, a lot of areas, it's 5, 6, 7 feet clarity here. You're not that far away from really muddy off-colored water that works extremely well for fish like this on the spinnerbait. And hey, look at that. Caught him right on the trailer hook, right in the top of the mouth like he's supposed to. Totally sick. Not a giant, but I will definitely take him. Anyways, I hope you guys learned a couple things about when and where to throw spinnerbaits and chatterbaits in this video, and when they work best in each situation. Remember, you get a muddy water area, you got wind blowing in, a lot of bait fish, those are the times to pull those out, especially a chatterbait around the grass areas. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out of here.